The Battle of Abbeville took place from the 27th of May to the 4th of June 1940, near Abbeville during the Battle of France in the Second World War. On the 20th of May, the 2nd Panzer Division advanced 56 miles to Abbeville on the English Channel, overran the 25th Infantry Brigade of the 50th Infantry Division and captured the town at 8:30 p.m. Only a few British survivors managed to retreat to the south bank of the Somme, and at 2:00 a.m. on the 21st of May, the III Battalion, Rifle Regiment 2 reached the coast west of Noyelles-sur-Mer. The 1st Armoured Division arrived in France from the 15th of May without artillery, short of an armoured regiment and the infantry of the 1st Support Group, which had been diverted to Calais. For the 27th of May to the 4th of June, the Franco-British forces south of the Abbeville bridgehead, held by the 2nd Panzer Division, then the 57th Infantry Division, recaptured about half of the area. The Allied forces lost many of the tanks and the Germans much of their infantry, some units running back over the River Somme. On the 5th of June, the divisions of the German Fourth Army attacked out of the bridgehead south of the Somme, and the Franco-British divisions opposite, which had been much depleted by the counterattacks, were pushed back to the Brel with many casualties. In 1953, the British official historian L.F. Ellis wrote that the Allies lacked battlefield coordination, which contributed to the Allied failure to defeat the Germans and magnified the cost of lack of preparation and underestimation of the German defenses south of the Somme. In 2001, Caddick Adams also wrote of the chronic lack of battlefield communication within and between the British and French divisions, was caused by a shortage of radios and led to elementary and costly tactical errors. The lack of communication continued after reinforcement by the 51st Infantry Division and French Armoured and Infantry Divisions. The Germans had committed substantial forces to the bridgeheads, despite the operations in the north, that culminated in the Dunkirk evacuation from the Somme. Crossings at Abbeville and elsewhere were still available on the 5th of June for Fall Rot, the final German offensive, which brought about the defeat of France. Background: Battle of France. After the Phoney War, the Battle of France began on the 10th of May 1940 when the German armies in the west commenced Fall Gelb. The German Army Group B invaded the Netherlands and advanced westward. General Maurice Gamelin, the Supreme Allied Commander, initiated the Daal Plan and invaded Belgium to close up to the Daal River with 3 mechanized armies, the French First Army and 7th Army, and the British Expeditionary Force. The plan relied on the Maginot Line fortifications along the German-French border, but the Germans had already crossed through most of the Netherlands before the French forces arrived. Army Group A advanced through the Ardennes and crossed the Meuse at Sedan on the 14th of May and then attacked down the Somme Valley. On the 19th of May, the 7th Panzer Division attacked Arras but was repulsed, and during the evening the SS Division Totenkopf arrived on the left flank of the 7th Panzer Division. The 8th Panzer Division further on the left reached Hesdin and Montreuil, and the 6th Panzer Division captured Doullens after a day-long battle with the 36th Infantry Brigade of the 12th Division, and advanced units pressed on to Le Bois. On the 20th of May, the 2nd Panzer Division covered 56 miles straight to Abbeville on the English Channel. Luftwaffe attacks on Abbeville increased and the Somme bridges were bombed, and at 4:30 p.m. a party from the 2/6th Queens of the 25th Infantry Brigade of the 50th Infantry Division ran into a German patrol and managed to report that the Germans had got between the 2/6th and 2/7th Queens. The British infantry were short of equipment and ammunition and were soon ordered to retreat over the river, but the 1/5th and 2/7th Queens found the bridges had been broken by the bombing. The Germans captured the town at 8:30 p.m., and only a few British survivors managed to retreat to the south bank of the Somme. At 2:00 a.m. on the 21st of May, the III Battalion, Rifle Regiment 2 reached the coast west of Noyelles-sur-Mer. The 1st Panzer Division captured Amiens and established a bridgehead on the south bank, overrunning the 7th Battalion, Royal Sussex Regiment of the 37th Infantry Brigade. Of the 701 men in the battalion, only 70 survived to be captured, but the operation deterred the Germans from probing further. The 12th Division and 23rd Division had been destroyed. The area between the Scarpe and the Somme had been captured. The British lines of communication had been cut and the Channel ports were threatened with capture. The Army Group A War diarist wrote that, "Now that we have reached the coast at Abbeville, the first stage of the offensive has been achieved." The possibility of an encirclement of the Allied Army's northern group is beginning to take shape. At 8:30 a.m., Air Component Hawker Hurricane pilots reported a German column at Marquion on the Canal du Nord and others further south. Fires were seen in Cambrai, Douai and Arras, which the Luftwaffe had bombed, but the air component was moving back to bases in England. Communications between the AASF in the south, the air component units still in France in the north, and the Air Ministry were disorganized. The squadrons in France had constantly to move bases and operate from unprepared airfields with poor telephone connections. The AASF was cut off from the BEF, and the Air Ministry and England-based squadrons were too far away for close cooperation. 2 squadrons of bombers in England reached the column seen earlier at 11:30 a.m. and bombed transport on the Bapaume road, the 2nd Squadron finding the road empty. After midday, Georges requested a maximum effort, but only one more raid was flown by 2 squadrons from 6:30 p.m. around Albert and Doullens. During the night, Bomber Command and the AASF flew 130 sorties and lost 5 bombers. BEF. During the winter of 1939–1940, BEF brigades had been detached for a period in the Maginot Line to gain experience of conditions close to German troops. SAR force was composed of the 51st Division and attached mechanized cavalry regiment, machine gun battalions, artillery, French troops on a composite RAF squadron, with fighters and Army cooperation aircraft. From the 30th of April to 6th of May, the force took over a line on the south from Colmen to Lanstroff, between the French 42nd and 2nd Divisions. In early May, German patrolling and skirmishing died down, but on the night of 9/10 May many German aircraft flew overhead. On the 13th of May, the divisional front was bombarded and German infantry attacks were repulsed. More attacks followed on the Franco-British positions, and on the 15th of May, the division was ordered back to the Line de Rossoy, before being relieved by the night of 22–23 May to concentrate at Etten, 25 miles west of Metz. Soon after the end of Operation Dynamo, the 100,000 British fighting and lines of communications troops south of the Somme were reinforced, and losses in the 3 AASF fighter and 6 bomber squadrons in France were replaced, and another 2 fighter and 4 bomber squadrons were sent from England. Advanced parties of the 1st Armoured Division arrived at Le Havre on the 15th of May and moved to Arras, but the German advance made operations in the area impossible, and Luftwaffe bombing and mining of Le Havre made the port unsuitable for more landings. On the 19th of May, the War Office agreed that the rest of the division should land at Cherbourg and then concentrate at Pacy-sur-Eure, about 35 miles south of Rouen. The rest of the division began to disembark on the 19th of May, but had no artillery, was short of an armoured regiment and the infantry of the support group, which had been diverted to Calais. The division lacked wireless equipment, spare parts, bridging material, and there were no tanks in reserve for the 114 light tanks and 143 cruisers in the armoured brigades. On the 21st of May, Evans was ordered to capture crossings over the Somme from Picpony to Pontremy and then be ready to operate to the east or north depending on the circumstances. At Rouen, Bowman had received intelligence that the Germans had already captured the Somme crossings and were moving on the Seine bridges near Rouen. Bowman ordered the crossings to be secured by part of the divisional support group, and next day part of the division concentrated in the forward lines, east of Rouen as a flank guard on the lower Andelle and to protect the arrival of the rest of the division on the 23rd of May. Early that day, part of the 1st Armoured Division advanced to the Brel on a line from Aumale to Blangy, as reports were received that their German forces on the southern flank were on the defensive, only reconnoitring south of the river as they attacked Street, Omer and Arras in the north. The French 7th Army had closed up to German positions from Péronne to Amiens, ready to cross the river on the 23rd of May. GHQ ordered a 1st Armoured Division attack to combine with the Anglo-French operations at the Battle of Arras, which had begun on the 21st of May. Lines of communication. The night of 22-23 May was also when Allied forces north of the Somme were cut off by the German advance to Saint-Omer and Boulogne, which isolated the BEF from its supply entrepôts in Brittany at Cherbourg and Nantes. The area south of the Somme mouth was the northern district on the BEF lines of communication, with Gep and Rouen sub-areas. Gep was the main medical base of the BEF and Le Havre the principal supply and ordnance source. From Saint-Cyans to Bouchy, northeast of Rouen, lay the BEF ammunition depot, and infantry, machine gun and base depots were at Rouen, Évreux and Le Rapinay. A main railway line linking the bases and connecting them with bases further west in Normandy and with the BEF in the north, ran through Rouen, Abbeville and Amiens. Bowman was responsible for base security and guarding 13 airfields under construction, with troops drawn from the Royal Engineers, Royal Army Ordnance Corps, Royal Corps of Signals and older garrison troops. Further south in the southern district were 3 territorial divisions and the 4th Border Regiment, 4th Buffs and the 1st, 5th Sherwood Foresters lines of communication battalions, which were moved into the northern district on the 17th of May. As a precaution, rail movements between the bases and the Somme quickly became difficult due to congestion and German bombing. The trains from the north mainly carrying Belgian and French troops, and the roads filling with retreating troops and refugees. Bowman lost contact with GHQ and was also unable to discover if Allied troops were going to dig in on the Somme further south. On the 18th of May, Major General P. de Fonblanc, commanding the lines of communication troops, ordered Bowman to prepare defences in the northern district. Beauforce was improvised from the 2nd, 6th East Surrey of the 12th Division, 4th Buffs, 4 machine gun platoons and the 212th Army Troops Company Re. Vic Force took over 5 provisional battalions, created from reinforcement troops in infantry and general base depots, which held plenty of men but few arms and little equipment. Beauforce was sent to Boulogne on the 20th of May by road, but the Germans had already cut off the port and it returned to the 12th Division near Abbeville. When when German troops captured Amiens on the 20th of May and then began patrolling south of the river. Their appearance caused panic and alarmist rumors. In the absence of reliable information, Bowman ordered the digging of a defense line along the Andelle and Bethune rivers, which were the most effective tank obstacles south of the Brel River, to protect Gep and Rouen from the east. Bridges were prepared for demolition and obstacles placed on the approaches. Prelude. German defensive preparations. On the 21st of May, Hansgrappe von Kleist prepared the Somme bridges for demolition, and outposts were pushed as far south as Moinville, Harpy, Caumont and Bailleul, where anti-tank guns had been dug in and camouflaged among the woods. Later in the day, orders arrived for the advance to resume northwards towards the Channel ports, but parts of the group were held back in reserve on the 22nd of May due to the Allied counterattack at Arras on the 21st of May, until reinforced by the 14th Corps and the 2nd Motorized Division began to take over the defense of the Somme bridgeheads the next day. The staff of Engineer Regiment 511 and Engineer Battalions 41 and 466 were added to the 2nd Motorized Division, ready to blow the Somme bridges in an emergency as the division probed south to the Brel, Hamel and Conti. When the 14th Corps arrived, it was to continue to expand the bridgeheads on the south bank. Allied offensive preparations. After a reform of the French command structure in January 1940, the Allied chain of command in the region around Abbeville was General d'Armée Qt Maxime Weygand, General Alphonse Joseph Georges, General Bestlin, General Orbit Frere, General Robert Altmer and General Marcel Hiller in command of Evans and Fortune, with the BEF with a veto over French orders. By appeal to the War Office and having vaguer responsibilities for the British forces south of the Somme, in the afternoon of the 18th of May, Georges ordered the 6th Army, 7th Army and the IV Division Cuirassiers to organize the defense of the Crozat Canal line and the Somme, between Ham and Amiens. The 7th Army was ordered to keep its forces ready for a counter-attack at the left flank of the attacking German forces. Troops withdrawing from Belgique were to organize a defense line further west around Abbeville to the English Channel. For the 19th of May to the 4th of June, the SNCF railways moved 32 infantry divisions to the area from the Aisne to the Somme. Despite German air superiority and the bombing of railway lines and junctions, the 2nd Armoured Brigade consisted of the HQ and the Queen's Base 9th Queen's Royal Lancers and the 10th Royal Hussars Armoured Regiments. The HQ and the base had landed at Cherbourg on the 20th of May and had deployed on the Brel from Hamel to Blangy. The other two armoured regiments arrived on the night of the 22-23 May, crossed the Seine on the 23rd of May to join the brigade, arriving at Aulnoy and Ormont on the Aulnoy-Picquigny road, having travelled 65 miles since the training. Thornton also had the 101st Light Anti-Aircraft and Anti-Tank Regiment and 3 companies of the 4th Border from Beauforce from the 24th of May. An advanced party of the base from the 2nd Armoured Brigade moved forward during the night to Arrains, 4 miles from the Somme at Longpre, and lost 2 tanks to mines trying to capture the bridge. Then found that all the bridges and the road along the south bank had been mined, blocked and guarded. An attack was ordered on the bridges at Droy, Ailly and Picquigny, with a company of the 4th Borders and a troop of the bays at each place. At Ailly, the Borders got 2 platoons across the river despite the bridge being blown, but with the tanks stranded on the south bank the party was withdrawn. The groups at Ailly and Picquigny could not reach the river due to the strength of the German forces holding the bridgeheads, the Borders losing many casualties and the bays several tanks. The Borders spent the night at a wood 8 miles south of Ferrières and the bays between that village and Cavallon. The 51st 51st Highland Division arrived on the Channel coast during the early Allied attacks on the German bridgeheads south of the Somme and assembled on the Brelle. After a difficult journey from the Saar due to German bombing, frequent changes of plan and delays caused by the big regrouping of the French armies south of the Somme, the divisional HQ was established at Saint-Leger, 7 miles south of Blangy on the 28th of May, under the command of the French 9th Corps. Plan. The ground north of the Brelle is a flat plateau cut with wooded river valleys draining into the Brelle of the Somme and is dotted with villages, obscured behind trees, among open fields with little cover. Under the impression that the Allied attack at Arras on the 21st of May was the beginning of operations either side of the Panzer Corridor, to trap the German armoured spearheads at the end of the Somme Valley, BEF GHQ for the 1st Armoured Division to advance with such units as were available without delay. It was vital for the division to cross the Somme on the left of the French 7th Army and advance on Saint-Pol to cut off German forces around St. Omer to relieve the right flank of the BEF. Evans thought that the division, arriving piecemeal, with the support group and an armoured regiment diverted to Calais, no artillery and with the 7th Army unprepared, could not achieve such an ambitious objective, but he had no choice but to try. George passed orders to the Swain Mission, the British liaison organisation at GQG, that the 1st Armoured Division was to mop up the Germans south of Abbeville, while the 7th Army crossed the Somme. Gort at BEF GHQ replied that he wanted the division to attack, not pursue small German forces. General Robert Altmaier, the commander of Group B, the left flank units of the 7th Army, sent other orders that the division must cover the left flank of the 7th Army for an attack on Amiens by that army. The Swain Mission then confirmed that the division was not under the command of Altmaier and was to carry out the existing orders. Evans ordered the 2nd Armoured Brigade, the only part of the division available, to close up to the Somme that night. During the night of 24-25 May, Evans was ordered by GHQ to cooperate with the French and wait in the existing positions. Georges had notified the Swain Mission that the 51st Highland Division was moving from the Saar and would join the 1st Armoured Division to cover the ground from Longpre to the coast. On the 24th of May, Georges had informed the Groupe d'Armées 3 commander General d'Armée Qt Antoine-Marie Benoit Besson on the left flank of the Somme line that the 1st Armoured Division was to hold the line until the 51st Highland Division arrived, establish small bridgeheads and prepare the bridges for demolition, but by this time the Germans were 5 to 6 miles south of the river. GHQ also reported that the Germans were well dug in and had strong patrols, supported by light armoured cars between the bridgeheads and the Brelle. On the 25th of May, Georges ordered headquarters that the German bridgeheads were to be destroyed. Evans was put under the command of the 7th Army, with War Office agreement, which also ordered an all-out attack. The War Office was unaware that the French were incapable of an attack from the south bank of the Somme sufficiently powerful to succeed at that. While preparing for Fall Rot, the Germans would reinforce the bridgeheads, 2 divisions having already dug in from Amiens to the sea, with more divisions moving into the area. On the 26th of May, orders for the attack were issued. The 2nd Armoured Brigade came under the 2e Division Légère de Cavalerie to take high ground from Bray to Les Planches, which overlooks the Somme southeast of Abbeville, with support from French artillery and infantry. The 3rd Armoured Brigade was subordinated to the Division Légère de Cavalerie for an attack on high ground from Rouvroy to Saint Valery-sur-Somme, also with French artillery and infantry. British tank commanders stressed again. Errol d'Armée Besson, the commander of Group d'Armées 3 and Frere, the 7th Army commander, that the British tanks were light tanks and cursor tanks, similar to the equipment in French mechanized light divisions, not slow, heavily armored infantry tanks like those in French armored divisions.